Snake, you know who that is?
You're kidding, right? It's Mario.
You know, I don't think there's a soul on this planet who hasn't at least heard of the name Mario. How could you not? This man is everywhere, from video games to theme parks to one of the top-grossing films of 2023. Hell, even Solid Snake has heard of Mario, and that man literally lives under a box. But at the heart of all that fame and millions of dollars worth of revenue is a 2D platformer filled with teamwork, curiosity, skill, and most importantly... Now, seeing as Mario has been around for over 40 years at this point, much has been done in order to spice up the format for each new platformer. At least, most of the time. The newest release, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, was a breath of fresh air for the franchise, adopting a new art style while bringing players to the Flower Kingdom to traverse and explore. However, are all of these changes good? How do they compare to the new Super Mario Bros. Series, the main source of classic Mario 2D platforming since 2006? So, I ask the question, Wonder or new Super Mario Bros.? Which is better? Let me just come right out and say that there isn't a clear-cut answer to which game is better, simply because they are so different. They each have different aspects that many people love and hate, which depends on the player and what they value in video games. I mainly just want to express my own thoughts on how 2D Mario platforming has progressed over the years and why I think Nintendo is heading in the right direction. So, let's start by taking a trip back to 2006. At this point in time, it had been a hot minute since the last 2D Mario game was released, that being Super Mario Land 2 in 1992. Not to say that the Mario franchise wasn't thriving, quite the opposite in fact. Games like Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine had completely changed the Mario brand. Although it simply followed the trend of the time, as most gaming companies made the transition from 2D to 3D. New Super Mario Bros., released for the Nintendo DS, changed that completely, by bringing back the old formula that made people fall in love with the games in the first place, and mixing it with modern elements, like Bowser Jr. as an antagonist and new power-ups. It showed fans that the developers hadn't forgotten their roots, despite changes to the video game world at the time. However, I wouldn't consider this game to be the best representative of the new series. That title goes to another game.
New Super Mario Brothers! Whee!
I can almost guarantee that when mentioning New Super Mario Bros., most people will think of this game. At least from my experience. This game pretty much did everything its predecessor did, but better. First off, being on a home console like the Wii instead of a handheld portable device allowed better graphics with a wide screen and more content, and not giving me carpal tunnel whenever I tried to play. New power-ups like the penguin suit and propeller mushroom were also introduced, with the latter becoming a fan favorite that would continue to make appearances in future titles. More characters made a return like Yoshi and the Koopalings. But most importantly, the main selling point of this game was the ability to play with up to 3 other players simultaneously, often resulting in absolute chaos. Everyone who has played this game has some kind of multiplayer memory where they got into a huge argument with their friends because someone got accidentally killed. Special shout out to my mom, who left me to die in the World 1 Fortress over and over again because I was terrible at the game, and my dad, who had to endure my tears after not being able to play because I was stuck in a bubble. Don't judge me, I was 5. There's actually even an additional game mode specifically for multiplayer, but I couldn't tell you about it, since I much preferred to play the main campaign. While I must admit I am slightly influenced by nostalgia, I do consider this to be the peak of the new series. Admittedly, I've never played New Super Mario Bros. 2 for the 3DS, since unlike Wario, I take no pleasure in collecting imaginary currency. When New Super Mario Bros. U and New Super Luigi U were released, fans were definitely getting tired of the series' formula, which had remained nearly unchanged since Wii with a few exceptions. If anything, these games felt like paid DLC of the original games before DLC was really even a thing. And yeah, you can argue that we also did that, but I personally felt like that game was more of a sequel than added content. There is a difference, as shown by the actual paid DLC of New Super Mario Bros. U, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, which is the same exact game except on the Switch and with a new character. That's it. Additionally, the plot for these games is all the same. The gang is hanging out when Bowser kidnaps Peach and now you gotta go save her. Mario games were never known for having deep plots, again with a few exceptions, but they could have at least changed it up a little bit. Why not rescue a different prince or princess to stop Bowser from doing something else? Like putting fairies in a jar. Oh no. But I digress. Long story short, people were tired of the old formula and craved something new that could breathe life back into 2D Mario. Which is kinda a shame since these games did a lot of things right and were fun to play. In a way though, I'm thankful for all these criticisms because they helped give birth to this. Like I mentioned before, Super Mario Wonder was a breath of fresh air for Mario 2D platforming. The previous games, which were all labeled under New Super Mario Bros., were limited in creativity due to the need to follow the guidelines created by their predecessors. But Wonder was an entirely new concept, allowing for much more creative freedom. There's a lot that I love about this game. First things first, the art style. I've heard some mixed opinions about it since it's quite similar to the cute and colorful Yoshi's Island, but I personally love it because it's quite similar to the cute and colorful Yoshi's Island. Not only that, but it further distinguishes this game from the previous games, that all have the same look and feel to them. Wonder further separates itself from previous titles by taking place in an entirely new kingdom, with a new plot instead of simply kidnapping Peach. Speaking of Peach, she's actually a playable character this time around, along with Mario, Luigi, Daisy, Blue Toad, Yellow Toad, Toadette, Yoshi, Blue Yoshi, Red Yoshi, Yellow Yoshi, and Nabbit. That's 12 playable characters. Granted, 1/3 of those 12 are different colored variants of Yoshi, and there's 3 Toad characters, but having this many characters to choose from was a long overdue, considering how big the Mario universe is. Most of the characters function the same, with the exceptions of the Yoshis and Nabbit, who don't take damage from enemies at the cost of not being able to use power-ups, making them especially good for newer and younger players. With this many characters, I think it's clear that multiplayer is back and better than ever. I've gotten to experience both local co-op and online play, and while I really like what they did with the online system, I'm a little meh about the local multiplayer. Previously, players have been able to interact with each other when playing, which had the ability to become extremely hectic or downright busted if the players were coordinated. Now, players are unable to directly interact with each other, the only quote-unquote interaction being when a player dies and gets turned into a ghost. As a ghost, the player won't lose a life if they can touch an alive player before the timer is reduced to 0. This system is pretty much Wonder's equivalent of the bubble system from previous games, except that didn't save players from losing a life. If you and your friends are decent at the game, you can essentially have unlimited lives. This becomes a bit harder in online multiplayer, where players can be at different points in the level, but even then you can place standees that function as a revival checkpoint, but the standees are adorable, so they get a pass. Also only really a problem with local co-op is designated leader players. The leader player will have a little crown icon over themselves and the camera will solely follow them, but the leader player can change to be other characters. I don't know if this was just us, but playing this with my friend, we found this to be a little disorienting at times, and if there was a button to control when the switch happens, we didn't figure it out. Overall, Wonder's multiplayer is definitely less chaotic than it was previously, and makes 5-year-old me stuck in a bubble very happy. And yet, a part of me misses the hectic multiplayer, with people angrily yelling at each other for accidentally killing each other. In a way, New's multiplayer added the challenge of really cooperating with other players. Now, let's talk about the power-ups. the number of unique power-ups in this game is significantly less than previous 2D Mario games, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, since there isn't much overlap between them. But let's address the elephant in the room. Get it? Because it's an elephant?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I was excited for this when it was first shown, but honestly, I don't think it's unique enough to warrant being a power-up. The elephant trunk can hurt almost all enemies and break blocks, but so could the catsuit. Elephants can also push things, like pipes, slightly faster. Emphasis on slightly, so that's not really a selling point either. The ability to keep water in your trunk to water plants is a good idea, but it isn't used enough for it to be missed if it was instead removed entirely. Ultimately, I feel like everything the elephant does can easily be done by other power-ups. It's likely the elephant will fall into the category of short-lived animal transformations like the penguin suit, acorn, and blue shell, as opposed to the iconic Tanuki suit and cat bell. I believe the developers should have put less emphasis on the elephant and more on the bubble flower and drill mushroom, the other new power-ups introduced. The bubble flower does just what you'd expect. You can blow bubbles to kill enemies or use them as platforms. But I mean, come on, who doesn't love bubbles? The drill mushroom is a new favorite of mine, basically being an expanded spin drill from Super Mario Galaxy 2. Not only can you dig into the floor and ceiling to get past obstacles and enemies, but the hat acts as a shield against enemies that attack from above. Both of these were really fun to use, partially because they can become overpowered in certain situations, but I enjoyed using them and hope to see them return. Speaking of return, the Fire Flower returns as a power-up. Moving on. Having only 4 power-ups like I mentioned before isn't a bad thing, and I much prefer having less tools to work with if it means they get more time to shine and can be utilized to their fullest potential. While this game misses out on more flight-based power-ups like the Propeller Mushroom and Acorn, I felt like I really got to experience everything that was intended with the creation of these power-ups. And I never really felt like I had a lack of options thanks to the new badge system. Badges feel like such an obvious addition that I can't help but wonder why they weren't introduced earlier. See what I did there? In all seriousness, New Super Mario Bros. U could have definitely benefited from something like this. Badges are unlocked gradually as you progress through the game and complete badge challenges. Once unlocked, you have the option to equip any badge of your choosing before entering the level or whenever you lose a life. Not all badges are created equal, however, since I found myself sticking with a select few and hardly ever touching others save for special occasions. Some of my personal favorites include the parachute cap, wall climb jump, dolphin kick, boosting spin jump, and jet run, just to name a few. Furthermore, unlike actual power-ups that you collect throughout levels, these badges are always active until you remove them, so I felt less inclined to gather power-ups before entering difficult levels. Overall, I really like the power-ups and boosts added to Wonder, and I hope they expand on the badge system as well as the Drill Shroom and Bubble Flower in the future. Level design has always been a very important aspect of 2D Mario. It's one element that I think Nintendo has really mastered over the last decade or so. Hell, they made 2 entire games that allowed players to create and share their own levels. One thing I really enjoyed from the earlier titles was the variety of different levels. Of course, each world had its own specific theme, like snow or beach or clouds, but within those levels were ghost houses, boss fortresses, airships, and mushroom platforms. These worlds also utilize specific enemy types to formulate the level, like a level dedicated to spikes throwing harmful projectiles, or cruising on the backs of buzzy beetles. Wonder follows this trend, even having most of its levels named after enemies you encounter in the level. However, Wonder takes this a step further by introducing a Wonder Flower in each level. Wonder Flowers are... well, why don't you try to explain this? Seriously, what am I looking at right now? Wonder Flowers have a variety of different effects that usually change per level, so you never really know what to expect when you pick one of these up, other than that things are gonna get weird. The level of creativity of all these different wonders is insane, and they really bring the level to its fullest potential, allowing players to interact with their environment in unique ways. While I think the number of unique wonders is plenty, I do wish that they were spread out slightly more, since you see almost, if not all, the different possible wonders by the time you complete World 3, so long as you go out of your way to beat every level. But ultimately, I think that the addition of the Wonder Flower creates so many more possibilities in terms of levels and creativity. Alright, not gonna lie, I know little to nothing about music other than I listen to what sounds good. Originally, I wasn't gonna even bring this up until I realized as I was writing this script that I was listening to video game music and suddenly remembered, oh yeah, that's a thing. Now, Wonder's soundtrack isn't bad by any means, except the track that plays with this Wonder Flower that gets on my nerves. But in my opinion, it doesn't hold a candle to New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Hell, it's been playing in the background of almost the entire video. Maybe it's my nostalgia talking or the fact that I listened to the soundtrack for the past 15 years of my life, but this game has some bangers. We've got the World 2 theme, which really plays into the Arabian desert vibes. The World 7 theme, which makes me happy whenever I listen to it. And above all, the final boss theme, which is definitely near the top of the list when it comes to final boss themes. Seriously, fighting Bowser should not sound this epic. This game has so many great tracks that really help with level immersion, that I just have to give the point here to New. Alright, I think that covers all of the major points of these games. Of course, if there's anything big you think I missed or should have considered, or you just want to rant about how wrong I am and how stupid my opinions are, let me know in the comments. But overall, I'm surprised by how great Wonder is compared to the new series. But like I said before, it's hard to compare the two simply because they are different games and one is nearly 2 decades older than the other. And none of these are bad games either. If you love 2D platformers, then giving each of one of these games a try is a must. From my own personal opinion, I like both of these games equally, since one is new and exciting while I have great nostalgic attachment to the other. Needless to say, both of these games are a wonderful experience.
Boo! You stink!